a window onto all of that and a means to communicate. So was I pleased that the World Cup was held in Qatar with a carbon footprint about at least 5 times what it needed to be? Well, no. But did it provide an opportunity to bring a story out to millions and millions of people? You know, it was great to be able to get onto Radio 5 and Channel 4 and Radio 4 and all the rest of it, just with that quote that Etienne mentioned just now, that, you know, this World Cup was probably the single, outside of war, the single most carbon intensive event that humans have ever organised. But on the other hand, you know, if you look at the World Cup, it's always going to have an impact, but is it worth it? All carbon footprints are about bang for buck. And, you know, at its very best, sport stands to reinforce those values that we have to have. You know, if football teams across the world are competing with each other and we're all identifying with the plight of every team, no matter what's happening for them, is that good for international understanding? I hope so, because we've got to find a way of increasing our capacity to empathise with people all over the world whose lives and cultures are completely different from ours. And the way that we do sport is absolutely so critical as a role model for how we do life. We're just looking at the carbon footprint of the Premiership at the moment, as it happens at my work, and it turns out that the biggest deal for the whole carbon footprint of the Premiership, if you take account of the teams and the spectators travelling and all the rest of it, to our surprise, the biggest deal turns out to be the food that gets eaten at Premiership matches, and that turns out to be down to the burger vans that are there that aren't selling vegan burgers yet. I mean, what a simple thing to change to role model, you know, a better future. So what are the things that we need to be modelling through the way that we do sport and the way that we do culture, and of course the way that we do the media? Well, the transition to a sustainable world is actually, it's not about wearing a hair shirt, it's about a better quality of life. Actually, it's about a life that is more fulfilling, that is healthier, in which we're more connected to each other, in which our lives, the way that we go about our livelihoods is more meaningful. You know, what's not to like about it? But we don't tell that story, but we can do it through our cultural events and our sport. If I'm going to pick one sporting event that I think is probably the best innovation, one of the best innovations to have come about in the 21st century, I think perhaps I'd choose parkrun, just for the kind of sheer low-carbon community engagement. Thank you, whoever invented parkrun. Okay, so I haven't got a lot more to say. You know, obviously, sporting role models can have a massive impact. I'll just pull out Marcus Rashford and Gary Lineker as two, but obviously there are many more examples of that. I'm not going to talk a lot about the media, except to say that we've put up with a media in this country which is mainly owned by billionaires who have a vested interest that is not about looking after people and planet. So can I just ask everybody who's listening here to ask very, very careful questions about what is your basis for believing that the media sources you're absorbing are giving you the most careful version of the truth that you can possibly get. Now, I'm not going to answer that question by pulling out what I think the best media sources are, because I think that's a personal one we all need to ask ourselves. But if you find that the media source you've got is not giving you the clearest view of the truth you can possibly get, then please switch right now. So, for example,
fuck the police, fuck the NHS. Fuck the NHS.
Up the NHS, I would go with that. Okay, so I could talk for hours, but I think I just want to leave with a message that, you know, in all the analysis I do, and you know, when I look at decisions that are being made about, for example, whether to have a coal mine on my doorstep in the west coast of Cumbria, to whether we should be opening up new oil fields, to anything you like about whether we're levelling up or whether to do Brexit or whatever, what goes wrong in all that decision making fundamentally boils down to, I think, two incredibly simple things, and they're so simple it feels almost naive to mention them, to talk about them now, to put it so simply. But it really boils down to, one is we've got to fight hard for a culture of truth, and we can have that, and we can roll back from the kind of degeneration of that we've had over the last couple of decades. So culture of truth. And the second one, just to be really, really simple about it, is we just got to have a culture of respect for everybody within countries and between countries, whoever they are, whether they're rich or poor, whether they're British, whether they're on a boat trying to get over to Britain, whether they are, wherever they come from in the world, we've got to have that respect for everybody in the world. So that's it. Truth and kindness, that's the only thing that we need to get us through this Anthropocene challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Truth and kindness. Can I hear it for truth? Can I hear it for kindness? And just so that you know, if you ever wondered, Extinction Rebellion, our first demand is to tell the truth. And one of our principles and values, I can't remember exactly which one, is that we respect everyone and every part of everyone. So these things are fundamentally baked into many, many parts of the environmental movement. So Mike, I just want to say thank you ever so much for being here. Thank you for being that voice for truth, that culture of truth that we need. It's so important. Thank you ever so much. And one more time, I just want, ladies and gentlemen,